My name is Natalie Keaton. I'm 37 years old, and I didn't understand how cruel a moment could be until the person I'd spent nearly a decade loving told me, without raising his voice, that I didn't know him at all. It happened over a birthday gift, a necklace, something small enough to fit in the palm of my hand, but heavy enough to finally collapse a marriage that had been quietly cracking for years. I'd been planning his birthday for months, not casually, intentionally. Back in July, we were wandering through an outdoor market, one of those weekend craft fairs with handmade candles, wooden toys, and jewelry stalls that glint in the sun like they're begging to be noticed. He stopped at one booth longer than the others, picked up a silver chain, a deep blue stone, polished smooth, catching the light. He held it up, smiled, and said, "That's actually really nice." Then, almost absent-mindedly, "Maybe someday." He set it down, circled the booth once more, picked it up again, examined the clasp. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. I made a mental note. A week later, I went back alone and bought it. I hid it in my home office drawer and forgot about it in the way you forget something you're confident will be right. Last Saturday, everything was planned. Dinner reservations at the restaurant where we had our first date 9 years ago. Same table, same wine list. I even called ahead to make sure they still had it. White peonies, his favorite. The ones he always admired but never bought himself. And the necklace, professionally wrapped with that thick embossed paper and ribbon he always lingered over in store windows. When we got home, he seemed happy, relaxed, thanked me for dinner, complimented the wine, mentioned how thoughtful it was that I remembered the table. I believed him. We sat on the couch with our glasses, and I handed him the gift. He unwrapped it carefully, slowly, like he always did. Then he stopped, stared. "What is this?" "The necklace, from the market, the one you liked." He set it down like it was contaminated. "I don't want this." I laughed at first, a reflex. "Are you serious?" "Yes. You literally picked it up 3 times. I was being polite. You smiled at it. Because that's what you do when you don't want to offend the vendor." My chest tightened. "You said maybe someday. That doesn't mean buy it. So what does it mean?" "It means nothing. And the fact that you don't know that just proves my point." I felt the air leave the room. "You don't know me at all," he continued. "You never have." Then he picked up the necklace and threw it at me. I caught it instinctively, the chain wrapped around my fingers. "Every year," he said, his voice sharp now. "Every birthday, every holiday, you get it wrong. And I'm exhausted pretending otherwise." Something inside me went very still. I stood up, set the necklace on the table beside the untouched flowers. Okay, just okay. Because somewhere deep down I already knew. This wasn't about jewelry. It never had been. I didn't slam the door when I walked into my home office. That's what surprised me most, how quiet I was. I closed it gently, like I was trying not to wake someone up. Like the version of me that still believed this marriage could be saved was sleeping somewhere in the house, and I didn't want to disturb her. But she wasn't sleeping. She was gone. I sat at my desk and stared at the wall for a long time, listening to the muffled rhythm of his footsteps in the living room. Pacing, stopping, pacing again, like his anger needed movement to stay alive. And in that quiet, something clicked into place with the cold certainty of a lock. This wasn't the first time. Not even close. It was just the first time he'd thrown something at me hard enough to make the metal bite into my skin. He was right about one thing. Gift-giving had become a minefield. For the last few years, every holiday came with an invisible test attached. A performance review I didn't know I was taking until I failed it. Valentine's Day. I bought concert tickets, the kind of thing couples are supposed to do. He'd snapped that it was lazy and complained I hadn't picked the right seats. Our anniversary. I planned a weekend getaway. He sulked because the hotel didn't have the exact view he wanted and told me I clearly didn't listen when he talked. Christmas. I gave him a watch. He said it looked cheap. Asked if I'd bought it on sale like I didn't value him. Every time I'd apologized. Even when I didn't understand what I'd done wrong. Even when I could feel myself shrinking to fit inside whatever version of good enough, he kept moving farther away. I'd tell myself he was just stressed, that he didn't mean it, that he'd been raised in a family that treated criticism like love. But criticism, constant criticism, does something to you. It hollows you out slowly, then acts surprised when you finally stop trying to pour yourself back in. I opened my desk drawer. There was a folder inside, plain, manila, nothing dramatic. I'd been keeping it for about 6 months. I hadn't told anyone, not friends, not family, because saying it out loud would make it real. And a part of me still wanted to believe I was overreacting. But after that Valentine's Day blow-up, the one where he screamed at me for 40 minutes because I'd bought the wrong kind of chocolate, I'd sat right here and thought, what if this never gets better? That night, when he finally fell asleep like nothing happened, I'd looked up attorneys. Not because I wanted a divorce, because I wanted proof that I wasn't trapped. Because I needed to know that if I ever reached a point where I couldn't do it anymore, there would be a way out that didn't involve begging for permission. The papers in the folder were simple. A separation agreement drafted by my lawyer. It wasn't signed yet. It wasn't filed. It was just waiting. Like I'd been waiting. I pulled it out and spread it across the desk. My name was printed there in clean black ink, Natalie Keaton. His name beneath it, Graham Keaton. 9 years married. And still, somehow, he could look me in the eyes and say I didn't know him at all, like the last decade meant nothing. I picked up my pen. Here's something most people don't realize about me. I'm a notary public. I'd gotten licensed years ago for consulting work. Clients needed documents notarized, and it saved time to have it in-house. It was one of those practical decisions you make and forget about until it becomes the sharpest tool in the drawer. My state allowed me to notarize certain documents under certain circumstances. This qualified. I didn't hesitate. I signed. I stamped. I dated it. And the whole time, my hand stayed steady. That was the moment I knew this wasn't an impulsive reaction. This was the end of something that had been ending for a long time. The necklace hadn't broken my marriage. It had just made the break visible. I sat back and exhaled slowly. In the living room, I heard his voice rise, probably rehearsing another argument, another list of my failures, another demand that I apologize for not paying attention. But I couldn't hear the words clearly. And I realized something unsettling. I didn't care what he said next. Not the way I used to. Not with that frantic need to fix things, to smooth it over, to earn my way back into his approval. That need was gone. Like it had finally been starved to death. Then I remembered something else. His car. The Lexus. The one I'd bought him 3 years ago for our anniversary because he'd mentioned, casually, offhandedly, that he liked how they looked. I'd paid cash, fully loaded, silver. The kind of gift you only give when you truly believe you're building a forever life with someone. The title had been in my name only at first, because it was easier with the bank and paperwork. We'd talked about transferring it to joint ownership later. He'd kept putting it off. I'd reminded him. He'd shrugged and said, "It doesn't matter. What's yours is mine anyway." That sentence used to sound romantic. Now it sounded like entitlement with a pretty bow on top. I opened another drawer, pulled out the filing cabinet key, and crossed the room. Folders, tabs, registrations, insurance papers. I found the Lexus registration. My name was on it. And there it was, the detail I'd allowed myself to ignore for 3 years. He drove it every day. But legally, it was still mine. I stared at the paper for a long moment. Not because I was unsure. Because I was realizing how many times I'd handed him power he never earned. Simply because I thought love was supposed to look like generosity without limits. I folded the registration neatly. Then I walked to the kitchen. The house felt strange at night when you weren't pretending everything was fine. The lights seemed harsher. The walls felt thinner. The silence between rooms felt like something living. I set the registration on the kitchen island where the morning light would hit it first, where he couldn't miss it even if he wanted to. Then I walked down the hall, past our bedroom door. I could hear him inside now, sniffling maybe, or maybe just breathing too loudly, waiting for me to come in and apologize the way I always did. But I didn't turn the knob. I went into the guest room instead, closed the door, and lay down fully clothed on top of the comforter, staring at the ceiling, listening. A few minutes later, I heard him crying. Real sobs, the kind that used to make my chest ache with empathy. But all I felt now was distance, like I was watching a storm from behind thick glass. Because even through the tears, I could still hear it, the expectation, that I would come running, that I would fix it, that I would swallow the humiliation and crawl back into normal. I didn't move. And sometime after midnight, the house went quiet. Not peaceful quiet. The kind of quiet that happens after something dies. I didn't sleep much, but I didn't cry either. I just kept thinking about the way the necklace had wrapped around my fingers when I caught it. How instinctively I'd protected something he'd thrown at me. And how that instinct, protect, absorb, endure, had been my role in this marriage for years. Tonight, I didn't protect him. I protected myself. Morning arrived without ceremony. No dramatic confrontation, no slammed doors. Just light, thin and pale, sliding across the kitchen tile and landing exactly where I'd placed the car registration. I was already awake. Coffee brewed, mug warming my hands. I sat at the kitchen table, spine straight, heart steady, in a way that felt almost unfamiliar. Not calm, resolved. He came out around 8:30, hair uncombed, eyes red, the remnants of last night still clinging to him like smoke. He stopped short when he saw the paper on the island. "What's that?" I didn't look up. "The car registration." "I know what it is," he snapped. "Why is it here?" "Look at it." He hesitated, then picked it up. I watched his face change as he read. Color draining, jaw tightening, fingers gripping the paper like it might dissolve if he held it too tightly. "What did you do?" he asked quietly. "I corrected an oversight." "What does that mean?" "It means the Lexus has been registered solely in my name for 3 years. Yesterday afternoon, I finalized that. You're no longer an authorized driver." Silence, the kind that presses on your ears. "You can't do that," he said finally. "I already did. That's my car." "It's not. I drive it every day. And I paid for it. My money, my name, my title." His voice rose. It was a gift. "A gift you've complained about 17 times. His mouth opened, closed. I didn't let him interrupt. "Too big. Wrong color. Not the model you wanted. Drinks too much gas. Seats aren't comfortable. Stereo system is subpar. I kept track." He stared at me like I'd slapped him. "So I'm taking it back." "You can't take back a gift." I finally looked at him. "Watch me." The shouting started then. That familiar frantic escalation. Accusations layered over panic. "This is insane. You're being vindictive. You're punishing me." "No," I said evenly. "I'm being clear." He laughed, sharp and disbelieving. "Over a necklace? You're doing all this over a necklace?" I set my mug down carefully. "Over 9 years," I said. "The necklace was just the moment you stopped pretending." He ran his hands through his hair. "So what, you're just done?" "I'm done negotiating my worth with someone who's already decided I don't have any." He stared at me like he didn't recognize me. Maybe he didn't. He'd never met the version of me that didn't flinch. "I can't afford another car right now," he said, voice cracking. "That sounds like a you problem. How am I supposed to get to work?" "Bus, Uber, bike, ask a friend, carpool. You'll figure it out." "This is cruel." "No," I said. "Cruel is throwing someone's love back at them and calling it lazy." He lunged for the registration. I pulled it back. "This is mine." He looked stunned. "I'm your husband." "And yet," I said quietly, "you don't think I know you. So why should I subsidize your transportation?" He didn't have an answer. Just rage. Just disbelief. Just the dawning realization that I wasn't bluffing. I turned and walked down the hall, locked my office door, and listened as he shouted through it for 10 minutes straight, cycling through anger, bargaining, threats, before finally giving up. Later, I heard something break in the kitchen. I didn't go check. The phone rang around noon. His sister. I answered on speaker. "What the hell is wrong with you?" she demanded. "Nice to hear from you too, Rachel." She didn't laugh. "He told me what you did. Taking his car? Are you serious?" "Very." "You can't just—" "I can," I interrupted. "It's mine." It was a gift. So was the necklace he threw at me. Silence. Then, defensive. "You're punishing him." "I'm protecting myself." "He's devastated." "I've been devastated for years." She scoffed. "He's going to divorce you over this. Then his lawyer can call mine." Another pause. "You're leaving him?" "I'm giving him what he clearly wants," I said. "A life without my apparently lazy, clueless attempts at love." I hung up before she could respond. 20 minutes later, there was a knock on my office door. Soft this time. "Natalie?" I didn't open it immediately. "Can we talk?" "About what?" "About fixing this." I opened the door. He looked wrecked. Mascara streaks from crying. Yes, he wore it sometimes. Swollen eyes. The same face he'd made at our wedding when he cried during his vows. Back then, I thought those were happy tears. "You really drafted separation papers?" he asked. "Yes." "Over a fight?" "Over a pattern." "I didn't mean it," he said quickly. "I was frustrated." "You meant it," I replied. "You've been meaning it for years. You just finally said it out loud." He sank to the floor, back against the wall. "What do you want from me?" I thought about that. Really thought. Then shook my head. "Nothing." His brow furrowed. "Nothing?" "That's the point. I am done wanting things from you." "Can I have the car back if I apologize?" "No." "Why not?" "Because you'd be apologizing to get the car back," I said. "Not because you understand." "I do understand." "Then tell me." He opened his mouth, closed it. I hurt your feelings." "That's all?" "I was cruel about the necklace, Lee," he added desperately. "I don't know what else you want me to say." And there it was. The truth. "You don't know," I said softly. "You don't see the pattern. You just want things to go back to normal." "What's wrong with normal?" I looked at him for a long moment. Normal was me walking on eggshells every gift-giving occasion. Normal was you calling me lazy while I tried my best. Normal was exhausting. I closed the door gently in his face, went back to my desk, and stared at my computer screen, wondering how a decade could unravel so quietly. He called out sick the next morning. I didn't. I got dressed, grabbed my bag, and went to my office downtown like the world hadn't tilted on its axis overnight. Like my marriage hadn't quietly slipped into its final phase while most people were still asleep. When I came home that evening, the kitchen looked repaired. The broken dishes were gone, countertops wiped down, the sink empty. He was waiting for me. I made dinner, he said. Pasta, my favorite, the one with the slow, simmered sauce his grandmother taught him, the dish he only made when he wanted something. The irony sat heavy in my chest. Can we eat together? He asked. Talk? I nodded. We sat across from each other at the dining table like polite strangers negotiating a ceasefire. I've been thinking, he started carefully, about what you said, about the pattern. I didn't respond. You're right, he continued. I have been critical, about gifts. I didn't realize how much it was adding up. Okay, I want to work on it, go to counseling, figure out why I do that. That's good, I said honestly. You should. His eyes lifted. You'll come with me? No. The word landed heavier than I expected. Why not? Because this isn't a couple's problem, I said. It's a you problem. He looked stunned. But we're married. We're separated. I thought this was just space. I filed the papers this morning. His fork slipped from his hand and clattered against the plate. Red sauce splashed onto the white tablecloth. You didn't, he whispered. I did. You said you needed time. I needed clarity. I have it. Over a birthday present, his voice cracked. Over a marriage where nothing I did was ever enough, I said calmly. The birthday present was just the breaking point. I said I'd work on it. Great, I replied. Work on it for your next relationship. His eyes filled with tears. You don't mean that. I absolutely do. The pasta went cold between us. The next day, his father called. I hear you're divorcing my son, he said without preamble. That's correct. Over what exactly? Ask him. I'm asking you. I exhaled slowly. He spent 9 years telling me nothing I did was good enough. I finally believed him. Marriage is hard, his father said. You don't just quit. I didn't quit, I replied. I endured. He quit respecting me. He loves you. He loves the idea of me being different, I said. He doesn't love who I actually am. That's not fair. Then why did he throw my gift at me? Why did he call me lazy? Why did he say I didn't know him after a decade together? A pause. He gets frustrated, his father said. Men do that. And women get tired? I said, I'm tired. You're making a mistake. Maybe, I replied, but it's my mistake to make. I hung up, then blocked his number, then his mother's, then his sister's. I was done being lectured by people who had watched this dynamic for years and called it just how he is. By Wednesday, he moved into the guest room permanently. We passed each other in the house like ghosts. Polite, careful, detached. He stopped trying to convince me. That was when I knew he'd talked to a lawyer. I heard him late at night on the phone with friends, crying, framing himself as blindsided, painting me as cold, vindictive, unreasonable. I didn't correct the record. I didn't need to. Thursday, he was served at work. He came home furious. You actually filed, he said. I told you I filed. I thought you'd cool down. I'm not emotional, I replied. I'm decisive. There's a difference. He flipped through the papers. Irreconcilable differences. Accurate. What differences? He demanded. Because I didn't like a necklace? Because you've never liked anything, I said quietly. Because you think so little of me that you can't imagine I tried. He sank onto the couch. I thought we'd grow old together. We grew apart instead, I said. It happens. Not like this. It wasn't fast, I replied. It was 9 years of slow erosion. Saturday was just when the dam broke. Friday, 1 week after his birthday, he tried a new approach. I looked at the necklace again, he said cautiously. It's actually really pretty. I was wrong. I said nothing. I'd like to keep it, he added, if that's okay. It's in the trash. His face twisted. You threw it away? You threw it at me, I said. I threw it away. That's petty. That's closure. Over the next few days, he tried everything. Counseling, gratitude, promises, language so polished it sounded rehearsed, like bullet points from legal advice. I recognized it. I didn't budge. Because for the first time in 9 years, I wasn't negotiating. I was finished. 2 weeks after I filed, we sat across from each other in a conference room that smelled like stale coffee and printer toner. Our lawyers handled most of the talking. I watched. I listened. And I felt something I hadn't expected. Relief. His attorney started with the house. She contributed to the household, he said. She should be entitled to remain there. My lawyer didn't even look at me when she responded. The house was purchased by my client prior to marriage. Paid in full. Title solely in her name. There is no marital claim. Next came retirement accounts. They tried. My lawyer produced documentation showing what I'd accumulated before the marriage versus during it. The portion earned during the marriage would be split fairly. It was far less than he'd assumed. Then the car. His attorney leaned forward. The Lexus was a gift. My lawyer slid the registration across the table. Ownership was legally transferred to my client exclusively prior to filing. Binding, valid. Silence. By the end of the meeting, the numbers were clear. He would receive a modest settlement from shared assets, about $20,000, and 30 days to vacate the house. That was it. He was crying when we left the room. "You really thought of everything," he said quietly. "I had 6 months to prepare," I replied. "Use them well." "So the necklace wasn't even the real issue," he said. "You were already halfway out the door." "I was waiting to see if things would change," I said. They didn't. They got worse. Saturday had just confirmed what I already knew. He didn't respect me. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later. He moved out 3 weeks after that. I heard through mutual friends that he'd found a small apartment across town and was taking the bus to work, complaining loudly about it. Apparently, public transportation was beneath him. Another thing I should have known. The fallout was predictable. Most friends sided with him at first, heard his version, the one where I was vindictive, cold, a woman who ended a marriage over a birthday present. A few asked for my side. I showed them receipts, texts, emails, years of criticism documented in his own words. The pattern was undeniable. Some apologized. Some quietly unfriended him. Some admitted they'd always thought he was too critical, but didn't want to interfere. His family still hates me. I don't care. They enabled him, explained away his cruelty as standards, labeled my endurance as obligation. I was done playing that role. People ask if I regret it. The nuclear option. Over a necklace. The answer is no. The necklace was just the catalyst. The marriage had been dead for years. I was just too invested to admit it. When someone throws your love back at you and calls you lazy, they're telling you exactly how they see you. I finally listened. The necklace is probably buried in a landfill by now. The car is still in my garage, though I'm thinking of selling it. Too many memories attached. The house is quiet. And it's mine. I've painted 2 rooms, rearranged furniture, made changes I'd always deferred because he wouldn't like them. Every decision feels like a small act of reclamation. I've started dating again. Nothing serious, coffee here and there. It's strange how different it feels when someone says thank you and means it. When effort is appreciated instead of dissected. Last week, I went on a 3rd date with a man named Ethan. After dinner, we walked to our cars. He noticed my watch. Simple, nothing flashy. "I like that," he said. "It suits you." It was such a small thing. But in 9 years of marriage, my ex-husband had never complimented something I chose. Not once. I'm not bitter. I'm not angry. I'm done. Done trying to earn love from someone determined not to give it. Done accepting criticism disguised as care. Done believing that if I just tried harder, he'd finally be satisfied. Some people carry an emptiness no gift can fill. I spent 9 years trying. All I got was exhausted. Now I'm 37, divorced. Starting over. The story people tell depends on who's talking. In his version, I'm the villain. In mine, I'm the survivor. The truth is probably somewhere in between. But I'm the one who has to live with my choices. And I can live with them just fine. The registration on the kitchen island was the moment everything changed. The moment I stopped asking for permission to value myself. The moment I stopped negotiating my worth with someone who'd already decided I had none. Best decision I ever made.